had to get it so that we weren't dropping 1,000 frames. So today we are here to talk about the Age of Intellect. Feel free to jump in on the comments if you're watching this and pipe in, but otherwise it's just gonna be me doing a monologue. Version 40, Age of Intellect. I am excited. So, I mean, look, first, let's start. This is awesome. I love FaZe. I love her art style. I know some people have complained about it, but I think it's unique. I think it's cool. I think the flavor is fantastic. Just overall, uh, good job, Epic. Big shout out to Epic in general, because they do not get enough love for the amount of work that they put into this game. So I'm sure a lot of you have already gone through this, but just to get some of some of our take on it, some of our opinions on version 40, I'm going to jump down to the actual patch notes, although Nova One Grainstone, he's pretty cool. I mean, it's pretty cool. I think that the aesthetic is very different from before, and I like that purely in the sense that it's doing something different. I personally, it's not my favorite aesthetic for him, just because I'm so used to, that less, because, I mean, this is very, like, high-tech stuff going on, and it's cool, don't get me wrong, like I said, I love it, but I like the Dragonborn skins. Let's just do that. So talking about card updates, I'm actually going to be doing an article. So I am going to talk about this here today as well, but I'm going to be putting together an article that's going to be going up on our website, coming soon, about all of the cards with unique passives, where they fit, what heroes they're good on, in what situations, things like that. So watch for that coming soon. It really just depends on when we launch the site. But hopefully sometime next week, hopefully by Tuesday, we'll keep our fingers crossed that I can actually pull that off. But if not, it will be coming soon. So we'll look at cards. Like I said, I'm going to go down to the actual patch notes. So full release note, shields. Okay, so shields, they now absorb mitigated damage. So this includes, essentially, armor now includes shields now include your armor, and the amount of damage that shield takes is reduced by the amount of armor you have. So, previously, shields didn't, they used to include this in a way. It got changed at some point. I wasn't around for any of that. So I've been just dealing with it as it's been for the last little while, and it makes Muriel quite bad. And I'm definitely curious to see, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, how this affects here. So, shields did get better. This also means that Honor of the Pure, Barrier of Will, self-shields like Bubble Tap, all got better. Because now, essentially, they can prevent more damage during that duration. Because previously, one auto attack from an ADC would destroy basically any shield. But now, if it's a tank, and they've got an Honor of the Pure shield, or if they've got a Muriel shield or a Muriel ult, or even just the armor that you get for being a hero, for existing in Agora, it helps just that little extra bit. And I'll be really curious to see how much of an impact it has. But, we'll see this coming Tuesday. But I'm definitely excited because I like Muriel as a hero. I think she's cool. I still don't understand the nerf on her ultimate where people aren't knocked up anymore. I don't know. I don't quite get that because she's so weak right now. And this may help. This might. But so the core, now deals damage to everyone, flat damage to all enemies in its radius. This is good. I actually don't think it makes that much of a difference, to be honest with you, because 110 damage is a lot. You know, usually 10, 11, 12 hits from this and everyone would die without any kind of healing or backup, anything like that. So you do have to go in with enough damage to take down the core if you're going to be standing in that range for any period of time. It also makes it a little easier to fight against the enemy once they are at your core. A little, at least. I mean, sure, it, is set up so that it deals less damage, or its attack speed. Where's that note? Because something about inhibitors. Okay, maybe am I just missing it in that? Let's see. Oh yeah, attacks right there, last bullet point. Wow, that was brilliant. Anyway, so attack speed reduced based on how many inhibitors are destroyed. I don't know if they have increased the attack speed. They don't make a mention of that, but even at the current rate, you can still take it down with one inhibitor, or with one inhibitor down, a decent wave of minions, and enough enemies dead. Like, I don't think that this change makes a huge difference, but it does make some difference, especially since one person can't walk up with a giant wave and just take down the core. I mean, they might still be able to, but it has to be a much bigger wave now. And it does, it doesn't hurt anyone who is able to push down an inhib and take the core, but it does reward people for taking down multiple inhibitors. And I think that's great. Like, I don't think there's a problem at all with rewarding people for doing something the game is encouraging you to do to start with. So there's that. So some minor updates to jungle changes. It's going to be harder to kite and at least avoid their damage entirely. So I don't know what kind of a difference this is really going to make, especially since they're reducing the damage. I mean, most people, if they're going in with Grux or Sevarog or someone like that, they're taking a Siphon anyway. With Rampage, Chimera, Kwang, you have that built-in sustainability. I don't really see this being a problem at all, but it might mean that those, level 3 ganks happen a little less often. Like, that's the biggest thing that I could see coming out of this, because if you're at a lower health point after fighting those minions, it's going to be a lot harder to rotate into a lane, take someone down without putting yourself in danger. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see exactly how this plays out. But the jungle minion CP bounty, that's 12 more CP per minion, which is pretty significant. I mean, 10 minions, that's a whole extra card point. Wait. Math. Sorry, no, that is 1/10 of a card point. So, it takes 100 minions, essentially. Doing the math in my head on the fly here, so it takes, like 80 minions? Doesn't matter. To get you a whole extra card point. The biggest thing that I actually think this changes is that when people like the ADC are farming those jungle camps, or the offlaner who is farming those jungle camps, that little bonus could actually go a pretty long way. So, and increasing the jungle minion Amberlink contribution, 5 extra CP per minion, that's significant over the course of, the first 20-25 minutes of the game, when that's still happening and still relevant, if it's even happening at that point. But It's relevant, and I think they're trying to find the sweet spot where the Amber Link becomes more of a priority, because right now, jungle invasions, hitting that Amber Link, yes, it's something that is done, especially at high level play, because you have to find those small economic advantages, because that's all you get. You can't get big advantages over an equally skilled enemy. You have to find those little ways to gain economy over them. And I think they're trying to make it even more of an incentive to try and invade successfully, try and drain some of the amber out of that link. And just, yeah, we'll see how much this influences, how much of a difference it makes. But I like the direction that's headed. So the gold buff, this is the change to the off lane, I think, that they were referencing, and I think that everyone is going to be disappointed. I was really hoping that they were going to replace that white camp, the 5th white camp that's right next to the off lane, with something specific for them. Who knows, they may still do that at some point. So they replaced the gold buff with, instead of being the giant Hulk guy, he is now a golden blowfly. That grants 300 card points when killed. So their thinking here as to how this improves this offlane is that it gives you something to contest, and it gives you something to try and just try and get ahead in card points, rather than falling way behind in card points, getting ahead in levels, and then having to, like, but I don't think this has the effect that they want it to. You know, if it actually has the health of a river, of those river buff blowfly things, the ADC is going to be taking it down in 2 or 3 hits. And they're, you know, it might mean that waves are getting frozen at that window instead of just behind it. So, you know, maybe it moves the ADC and support a little farther forward, but I don't see an offlaner being able to contest this very effectively that often. Like, sure, Kalari might be able to steal it. There, you know, an offlane Aurora has enough mobility that she might be able to sneak in there, get it without dying. But if you die, obviously you're giving the ADC a lot more CP than this river buff.
It's not an offlane buff.
It's a safe lane buff. Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
It does nothing for the offlaner.
No.
It's really weird.
And I really don't get why they thought this was an offlane buff, because it's not.
It's not. Like, no offlaner should be trying to go farm that.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, people were making the argument that you could go stand in that little window between the lane and the buff, be able to steal it, but they're going to be on that constantly.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, as a support, I'm even thinking, you know, with anyone who has the ability to jump over that little wall, I will literally just be standing next to that buff as long as I can see the minion health bars, just to protect it so the ADC can come grab it, because
that kind of tactic is, I think, in the same pool as, like, trying to snipe Orb Prime. Like, the risk, it's too risky.
Yeah.
For the payoff.
Especially since in this card it's 300 card points. Yeah. Like, which, if it was more than that, it would be broken, because then the ADC would just snowball into oblivion within the first 10 minutes of the game.
Like, hey guys, I'm at my max build, how you doing? And we're just like,
we're all sitting there like, oh, I'm at 20 card points, so I'm gonna go farm that buff for a little while. And so, yeah, this offlane buff, like, it like you said, it's a safe lane buff. That is a good way of putting it, because it's so much more relevant than the gold buff. You know, the gold buff is fine. It was a little helpful, but that 20% bonus for such a short period of time, it often just didn't do that much. This does a lot, and it's going to make it even harder to put an ADC behind. If they are on top of it, if their jungler is on top of rotating to it, so that the enemy jungler can't, like, try and help the offlaner contest it or whatever. Like,
yeah.
Heck, even if your jungler is just walking over and taking it because the ADC has the lane push or they're over in mid lane or whatever, it's still just like
it's way more relevant than the gold buff.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
And it is more relevant to try and steal it, but
it's more relevant in the early game too. Like that was a problem that I always had with the gold buff is that
you didn't start the game at like 2 minutes or whenever it spawned. I don't even know when it spawned, and that goes to show how irrelevant it was. Like,
it's just the timer on it was small enough that you either had to time farming it when the lane was pushed up to that point so that you could then
so that you didn't miss farm in the process.
And more often than not, I would see junglers take it. Like, I would see people take it and then go into the jungle.
Right, yeah.
And it's, you know, but if you're at the point, like, it's most effective if you can take it and then go clear those 3 camps.
Right, yeah.
In that time limit. But if you can do that in that time limit, like, I think you're already past the point
where it was particularly useful.
Hard point buff is...
Well, especially 20%, like with those jungle minions, that's only giving you an extra, you know, essentially 2 amber points per jungle minion. Like, that's not very much. Let's see, because it would, give you an extra 14. Math, oh my god. And, you know, in the lane, it's giving you an extra 20 points for the ranged minions, an extra 28 points for the siege minions, but it just wasn't that relevant.
But now it'll just be a really pretty fish.
It will be, well, or it'll kind of look like the blowfly, like, because it's supposed to look like the river buffs, and they've got the wings and...
I always thought they were fishes with wings.
Oh, fishes with wings, okay.
Like fish to me.
All right. Hey, that's...
Picturing it like a fish, so it better be a motherfucking fish.
So, I mean, I think that this will actually speed games up because your ADC is going to scale up that much faster. Like, I don't see this being particularly helpful for the offlane. I actually think it could significantly hurt the offlane. And I think we will definitely, I mean, yeah. It's an interesting try. I like it better than the gold buff still, but not an offlane buff. I really want to see them replace that outside white camp with something more relevant for them. You know, because going in 2v1 to try and steal this, sure, you can get to a point where you can one-shot it, but God, like, if they're there, they're going to be taking it. If they're not there, then that 300 CP, probably they don't care about it enough for, like, it's still relevant for you, sure, but anyway. So green buff got a slight buff. I don't think this takes actually, like, is that particularly relevant. It'll just make clearing those early jungle camps better, and if you can grab it before taking raptors, it makes raptors that much easier. But raptors already not that difficult if you have a decent jungler. So raptor camp now respawns 5 minutes after all of them are taken. And reduced the bounty to 650 from 800. So they're trying to reduce the importance of raptors, or like the snowball effect if you can't contest them. I think this is fine. I don't really... to me, this difference, I think it's more to make up for the fact that the carry can now snowball with that gold buff than it is to try and, you know, it lessens Raptor's impact a little. You know, you're only getting 1.5 card points from it. Almost 2 card points instead of almost 3. You know, you get 1900 amber, right? 1950. There we go. Wow. You get 1950 amber instead of 2400. So it's... That doesn't seem right. 450. Yeah, no, that is right. 450 less amber from where you were getting before. That's something. Yeah, like I said, I think it's mostly just to make up for the fact that the carry now gets a essentially free 300 card experience every few minutes. Yeah, I'm really curious to see how this gold buff plays out. I do like that it makes the gold buff more relevant because, like I said before, it wasn't. Yeah, now it's relevant because the carry wants that. Orb Prime, increase of duration back to 150 seconds. That's fine. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. I also don't think it makes that big of a difference. I mean, there have been a couple of times when we've been pushing core and have lost Orb Prime, but so far, like, you just have to set it up right. I guess it gives a little more counterplay if you're behind, because you have that extra 30 seconds to make something happen. It's relevant. Phase. Okay. So, I get to create a link between... So we're just going to walk through her abilities real quick. She's awesome. So, telekinetic link creates a link between her and one target friendly hero. Can be reactivated to pull the tethered target to her. So there's still some information missing from this. Additionally, phase passes her health regen to her linked ally. Using any of her abilities or reactivating the link gives her a quick health regen boost. So there's a couple of questions with this. Does the tether last forever? Does it have a time limit of it? Does it have a distance limit? Like, how is this limited? Because I definitely think there has to be a distance limit, because otherwise you could have really odd things like tethering a Kalari, letting them ult into a group, like a large group of enemies trying to protect their low carry or whatever, killing the carry, and then being able to pull them immediately back out. Like, that just doesn't seem right. So there's got to be some sort of limitations on this. I don't know, again, if it's going to be time, distance, things like that, but positioning with her, I have the feeling, is going to be like the most important part. And especially if distance can break the tether, that's going to be huge. So as far as passing her health regen, does that mean that she has none while she is tethered? Does the health regen that she passes over include Circlet of Health? So essentially they get double the bonus from Circlet of Health because it's buffing her and them at the same time. Like, what are the limitations on this? Does it work with things like Cast Converter? Again, does she get 0 health regen during that time period while she's tethered, while they're linked? Yeah, I really don't know what to think about that yet. Like, it's just information we're missing. It also does not tell us how much of a health regen boost she gets from using those abilities. So, there's still a lot of questions there as to how exactly she's going to play. But this is cool. I like this idea of, as if you were climbing a mountain and you were linking yourself to your climbing partner so that neither of you die, ideally. That's a cool concept, and I like where they went with it. So Psychic Flare, I'm really curious to see what this looks like. So, you emit a blast of light around her and her linked target. So this could make, again, positioning is going to be so interesting, because you can link to the frontliner, teleblink into their backline, pop this off and blind, most of the enemy team. And that could be enough to get a team wipe out of it. Like, that's a cool idea. But conversely, it also, you only get half the effects if they're not tethered. It still at least does something, which is good. Or if your tethered target is walking out of a fight, like, there's a lot of things going on there, and I like that.
I want to know if you can cleanse her tether.
Cleanse it?
Because
how?
Don't you have to tether?
No, you tether an ally.
And then the enemy's near the ally?
So,
get blinded?
Yeah, Psychic Flare, what happens, it's a burst of light from her and the ally. So it's a small radius around them. I mean, we don't know how big of a radius that is.
Okay.
But then that is what blinds them.
That's not the one I'm thinking about then. Oh, it's
cool.
it's the slow to the root thing. That's what I want to know.
Oh, yeah, so Energy Lance. Yeah, that one, you should be able to cleanse it. Yeah. Like if you're... So Energy Lance, you know, firing a stream of energy from her hands, stacking slow. If it stacks up high enough, it turns into a root because they will have 0 movement speed. Don't know how long that root will essentially last. But yeah, with this one, if you're, you know, if you have Toxigel or something like that, and you're getting hit by the ADC in that process, that cleanse should not only remove the root, but it should also remove the slow. Even if, like, so yeah, if that ADC is wailing into you while you're getting slowed.
Does it say how many stacks you have to put before?
Nope. So it also, yeah, it doesn't say how the stacks are stacked up. You know, how often are those hits coming? Is it 1 per second? Is it, you know, is it 0.5 seconds for each hit? How long does this beam last? How many stacks do you need to get to hit that, like, minus 700 movement speed, you know? In that time in between, how much of a slow is it? There's a lot of information missing there. So we'll have to see come Tuesday. Or maybe on Monday. We'll probably get a lot of that info Monday in the community stream.
Probably.
In the Dove stream, yeah.
That would be cool. It's going to be like a bad time to be an AI bot.
Yeah, no kidding.
New hero coming out and it's like, alright, everybody line up. Got to blind you. Got some research to do.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and then her ultimate, Hyperflux, gets a movement speed boost to both her and her linked target, increases their attack speed, mana regen, and cooldown reduction. So we don't know how, you know, mana regen of plus 75, so that's huge. So, you know, we don't know how long the mana regen, cooldown reduction, and attack speed last. But, you know, if it lasts 4 seconds, that's a whole nother ability. Like, I mean, that's huge. So yeah. So you get the 2-second decaying movement speed boost, which is cool. You know, I like the idea of decaying movement speed stuff because it gives you a higher bonus at the beginning, decays over that so that it's, you know, a gradient instead of a boom, boom. Like, it's not such a harsh drop off at the end of it or during the ability. So I think that's cool. I think it'll be easier for them to balance too. So Aurora Criticism, extra damage, they fixed it. I didn't even know this was a thing, but sure, that's great. Feng Mao, so this, he gets a huge damage boost to Reaching Dash. Like, the fact that it can't crit anymore, I don't think is that big of a deal because most of the Feng Maos that I saw weren't building crit anyway. I didn't even actually know that it could crit. I don't play a lot of Feng Mao either. So, you know, the damage bonus increase is pretty significant. I mean, let's see, it more than doubled. That's a lot of damage.
Is this the thing?
Yeah. So the damage bonus to that basic attack that he gets after Reaping Dash, it can't crit, but now it can deal 140% more damage at max level, that's massive.
Yeah. I've only played him like, you know, less than 10 times, but I like that change because it's just more consistent. Like, you don't have to worry. Like, you don't have to sit there biting your thumb. Like, is it gonna crit or not?
Right. Sure. So, you know, Gadget, they changed the thing to adjust for the movement speed decay. which is good. I mean, the 200 from 125, again, you're getting that larger boost at the beginning, which is nice. So, deflect. I don't know how I feel about this one personally. So, every 9.753 seconds, he will block 100% of the damage from the next basic damage instance that hits him. So this includes things, abilities that deal basic damage like Twin Blast Ult. It will block one of those bullets, or Twin Blast Triple Shot, for instance. And there are obviously other skills that deal basic damage that he can block. But this is no longer provides bonus health and armor. There's a part of me that feels like this is a nerf, and there's a part of me that feels like this is really strong. Because it's really strong if you're up specifically against an ADC that does not Twin Blast. But, and I don't know, and maybe because of that, like the bonus health and basic armor, the basic armor is what was helping you in the fight against the ADC. The health was helping you in other areas, but the health that you were getting, the basic armor you were getting, it wasn't that much. And so, I've been thinking about this on and off today. In the end, I think it ends up being a slight buff. It makes him a tiny bit weaker to something like Countess or other burst mages. But they were already fairly decent against, well, Countess wasn't, but there were several of those who were pretty good against him anyway. And so I don't think it makes a huge difference. It's in that fight against the ADC, again, if you're not fighting against Twin Blast, because he can negate this fairly easily, but 3-second cooldown, that's fast. They might get off. It may literally block every third attack from an ADC, which, that's a lot. So, I'll be curious to see how that plays out. So, Iggy and Scorch, they get a slight buff because they removed all of the constructs. Flame Turret, Void Drone, wards no longer have pips. So instead of having to hit them X number of times, period, they now have health. I don't know. I mean, so at max level, you're talking about one hit from an ADC, maybe two, which does mean that they have to target the turret. So against anyone except the ADC, this is pretty significant, actually, because, that max level Sevarog, who with their basic attack is hitting for, 150, 160 damage. That means they're having to hit this thing 6 times in order to blow it up. Whereas before, you could drop a hail of arrows or a, gadget drone, like the little seek and destroy, or something like that, and it would be gone. Same thing with wards. So I'll be interested to see how this play. Interested to see, particularly with the cards that are coming, if Iggy and Scorch is viable again. But this, I think, does go a long way, because if, for instance, the ADC is targeting your turrets in that mid-late game situation, early game, I don't think it changes that much, honestly. It's three to 4 hits from an ADC, 2 hits from them plus 2 hits from the support. I don't think it makes a huge difference at that first level, but once you hit that second, third level, and once it's maxed, that's a lot of health. And if they're having to focus that down instead of focusing down a hero, I mean, it's just going to make them a little harder to deal with, and that's good. He needed that. So Bellica, Void Drone, same thing. Damage reduced to make up for this fact that it's harder to get rid of her drone. I actually think this is a pretty significant buff for her to a character that didn't need a buff. The power scaling, things like that, I'll let someone better at math figure out exactly how this changes it. But I really feel like this makes it harder to get rid of in the middle of a fight, because previously, 4 or 5 auto attacks, and if you have 4 people standing there, it was just gone. Now they have to commit at least a little bit more, and potentially you have to commit the ADC to killing it, which is significant. Meanwhile, this is just zapping if you're using any kind of abilities. So Kallari, they already talked about this in the community stream, but her Crippling Dagger is damage increase, quick cast ability. I think both of those things are good. It'll be like Richter's Hook, where you can hold it down to do the thing if you need to, but if you just in the moment need to be able to, bam, Crippling Dagger, you can do that without having to confirm it. I like quick cast abilities on a lot of things, and this is one of them. Yeah, I like it. I think it'll be actually a little easier to hit it. So, Shadow Dance, passive health regen. People were worried about this. It maxes out at 12 while in the Shadow Plane. I don't think this is going to be... I think this is a balanced way to do it. I think she's still insanely strong after these changes, in part because of the next 2 abilities. But, whatever. So with this, she, can just jump, which is nice. I like that. I think that's a great idea. I think that the cooldown was reduced, and I like that there's no mana cost. I always thought that was a little silly. 2, now she won't get shot by Belica's drone, I don't think. I mean, since it's a passive and not an activated ability, I don't think her drone will shoot you. So sadly, I won't be killing any Kallaris that way anymore, because I love to do that. They would get in, I would be hitting them, they wouldn't think about the drone, they'd double jump, and they'd die. It was beautiful. So with this, or they'd just have to stay away. It was great. The huge buff to Kallari, though, is with Shadow Walk and Death Sentence. So Shadow Walk now automatically activates when she drops below 35%. This is going to make her even more difficult to track down and kill. Wards are still a thing, thankfully, and wards are actually better than before because they're harder to get rid of. But if they don't have a ward, you're probably getting away. The fact that it can only trigger once every 60 seconds is really important. And the fact that it only triggers as the damage comes from any hero is also really important. So, if they kill you but get stuck in a crowd of minions, they're not going to be able to just poof and have the minion aggro go away. That's important to me. She's going to be such a pain, and I love it. I love that she's going to make a little bit of a comeback. It'll still take some time to see if she's actually going to move up from that bottom tier of heroes at all. But with Death Sentence and with those changes, so Death Sentence now adds a slow. This is huge. This is a big slow. It's more than Ash of the Witch. It's more than a lot of things. And it also means that she can use this just to help other people secure a kill too. So if you're chasing down an enemy, you have a Kallari on your team, say they're even at 3/4 health. She ults on them. So they get that 250 movement speed slow for that, basically 1 second. And that's huge. So not only will you be able to help an ally get to them to shoot them, you will also immediately be right there. You can Death Sentence into the slow dagger and people will die. If you can coordinate it. It's going to be beautiful. I'm really excited about this. So Morgesh, slight nerf. Not even a nerf. This is basically nothing. So ability armor got slightly reduced. whatever. I really don't think. I think what needs to happen with her is that Mark needs to deal slightly less damage. And I think her ult actually needs to deal slightly more damage, conversely, to help balance that out. I think Hive is actually in a decent place as far as damage is concerned. I think, I think Mark does too much damage right now. I really like her as a hero. I love, the concept of marking someone and saying, hey, you're my target. I'm going to kill you. But right now, Mark, Hive, auto attack, Mark, they're dead. Because she just does so much damage. Granted, I have also found that it's not that hard to play around her either. Once you're aware of this fact, she's very easy to burst down. It's actually fairly easy to counter pick against her because you can pick up a hero like Narbash. Or even Muriel is actually pretty decent against her. And the Decker stun, any of your stuns, roots, things like that, things to prevent her from being able to go at you in that way, it makes it very easy to deal with her. And I know that can be said of a lot of heroes, but she is one where she is squishy enough that you can go in on her, and as long as you're not trying to solo her, then you're fine. And there are even heroes who can solo her, and it's not that bad. So Muriel. So shields. Her shields did get a boost because of the changes to how shields work. Again, time will tell if this actually makes a difference. But it is pretty relevant. So movement speed increases to account for the fact that it decays. This is a pretty huge boost, though. This is more of a boost than I expected. I know that it's going to decay along probably a linear line over that 2-second duration, so that big boost isn't going to last for very long, and it probably averages out to be similar. I'm guessing that's what they're going for, but this is still pretty significant. Murdoch gets the actual rework. We were hoping that Richter might get their actual reworks this time around. It's Murdoch who got it. I didn't actually see that coming. So move along. Static Trap gone. Static Trap I actually thought was still okay, but it was really easy to avoid. It wasn't actually that relevant in most fights. Move along I liked, but again, not that relevant. So I what they replaced it with is pretty strong. So Buckshot reworked. So enemies damaged by Buckshot are pushed. So this is kind of their way of keeping the defensive aspect of move along in place without, you don't lose that, but it makes Buckshot even more relevant. And I appreciate this. So, still deals damage. Damage range 1,000 units. Only pushes something if they're within that 700 units. And then pushes them back to that 700 units. So it's basically one thing of movement speed away from him. If they weren't attacking. Which, if they're that close, you certainly hope that they were attacking. So, I like that. I like that they still keeps a little bit of that defensive part of it, because there was so much play that you could have with that, with Move Along and Aurora's ult, with Chimera's ult, things like that. If you timed it properly, you could get them away before it actually happened, or knock Countess out of her ult, for instance. So, Hot Pursuit grants movement speed when running at a visible critically wounded enemy within those units. So I like this. I think critically wounded is defined as less than 35% HP, I think. Although I'll have to double check that. Maybe someone, if you're watching this on YouTube or whatever, can remind me what critically wounded actually is. I think this is cool. A lot of people are complaining about the fact that along with his next new ability, it's 2 passives. So Murdoch's next basic attack gains bonus range, basic pen. So in those seconds, if that passive is up and you hit someone, bonus range, basic pen, like this is pretty significant damage, and it'll be interesting to see how much range you get out of it. But I like how this, I like it. I don't even think there's much more to say about this. Like, he is going to be very strong. And it's going to be very easy to run people down as him if, it will not, engaging an enemy and following up on a wounded enemy is going to be really easy between a longer shot, if you haven't been in the fight, a unlimited range ultimate, and movement speed bonus to like set those things up. That's pretty nuts, especially 250 movement speed. That is huge. That's as much as Kalari's ult slows now. So just, yeah, I think he is going to be very, very strong coming into version 40. So March, again, they made the changes to average things out because now the movement speed decays over its duration. Shock therapy reduced to 12 seconds for Richter over that whole thing makes a difference, sure. I still don't think Richter is that great, but it makes a difference and it's solid. It's a good direction. Shinbi got some decent upgrades, actually. She's one of the heroes. I love Shinbi. She's so much fun, and she is fun to play, in my opinion. But she had problems, and competitively, she was only kind of viable. So all kill, you can now move while casting. The wolf stack duration, this is the part of it that makes such a huge difference. Increased to 10 seconds from 7 seconds, so they last 3 seconds longer, and that is a big difference. When your average fight is only lasting 6 to 10 seconds to start with, the fact that these stacks can last that entire fight and you can still ult at the end of it when someone is trying to get away from you, it makes such a huge difference. Rushing beat no longer loses the ability to recast rushing beat after being stunned or silenced. I like that. I haven't come across that situation personally, but it helps let that be a skill. If you've already tried to use it to get away, you've cast it once to try and get out of a bad position or because someone is collapsing, you get stunned. Before, it was gone. Now you still have a chance to get out of that bad position. Probably still not great, but you have a chance. Line tempo, projectile speed increased. Great quality of life improvement. I think that's pretty huge. Steel. Okay, I don't know how I feel about these steel changes. So Force Shield has been removed. I liked Force Shield. That was one of the skills that I actually liked on him, because it actually made for some really interesting plays where you could more easily defend a tower, where you could slow someone down. I really don't know how I feel about that getting removed for these other skills. However, these other skills are very solid. Bulwark reworked. Now deploys a smaller attached force shield. So I don't know if that's going to function exactly like the previous force shield did. I don't know how big this is going to be. If someone walks through it, are they still going to be slowed? Is it going to extend that far away from him anymore? is that going to then, does that mean that Bulwark blocks all ranged attacks rather than just giving you reduced damage? The duration increase is nice. The fact that you can turn him now during Bulwark makes a huge difference, makes this much more relevant. There's still some questions there as to how exactly that's going to function, but that could be really cool. Blade of Armor, also very relevant. So this ability armor, 95 ability armor per stack at max level. Taking ability damage only removes 1 stack. So you get 4 of them total. So you have, 4 abilities on him, and you have finally removed all the ability armor. So he is going to be able to tank mages like crazy. Like, if you are a mage, you are not fighting him. That's basically what this means. He really can be a frontline in a way that he hasn't been able to do in a long time. Because, Bulwark can help him mitigate the damage from ranged attacks in a more effective way now, hopefully. And then this Blade of Armor means, oh my goodness, 95 ability armor. Like, that's huge. There's a lot of damage mitigation. So I guess once you've removed all 4 stacks, and if you keep hitting him with abilities, then yeah. And there are ways to help play around this. You can fit him with a skill that you don't necessarily need to do a ton of damage. For instance, like Rain of Arrows, or and it's taking ability damage. So Moragash removes all 4 of those stacks very quickly. The Hail of Arrows, Seek and Destroy. I guess Gadget's ult, if he's in there, the last tick will still deal full damage. So there are ways to play around this, especially with skills that deal damage over time. But this is pretty significant. He will be I think he will actually be a viable pick for that offlane position over something like Greystone, because now he won't just get melted by abilities. Because that was one of the big problems. Yes, his ult getting nerfed. I still think his got over nerfed, but yeah, this is relevant. Harvest Nettles for the Fae, consecutive hits on the same target within 9 seconds. Remember, cooldown of 5 seconds. So, you have 4 seconds to hit that second shot. This is huge for poking in the early game. That's a pretty significant buff. Yin, Lash Kick. So, range reduced. That's, she got a little bit of a balance. Right now, she was one of the best heroes in the game. Maybe the best carry in the game, arguably. I still personally like Twin Blast and Sparrow better, but this is, especially this next part, Windburn. Mana cost increase, so now it's, this still basically negligible in the late game. But the cooldown increase, increased a full 4 seconds at max level. So instead of having, 1 second off, you have almost 5 seconds off. That's huge. It means, you can't just be spamming it the entire game come level 8. And that's, I think this does somewhat reduce her domination of that slot. But she's still a viable choice. She's still very strong, but I think she is now a counter pick instead of just being an always good pick. And in part, too, it's because Lash Kick, that range reduction is pretty significant. So card updates. I'm actually going to grab some water real quick first. Throat's a little scratchy. Okay, so as I said before, I'm going to be doing a whole article series on cards, and I'm going to be doing a video series on basics of deck building, things like that. So this, I'm going to go over it a little bit and some of the big impacts that I see, but as far as specific cards, I'm not going to be talking about those in a lot of detail in this, just because I'm putting all of that other stuff together for that. The biggest increase is, health per CP is being increased by 10. So this is, they're trying to bring back possibility of being an actual tank rather than just benefiting from building armor. Building power. And this also, I think this is big for supports too, because now the limited amount of CP that you get does more. And I know that it doesn't seem like a lot on the surface per se, but this is all pretty significant actually, because that is, all of those different levels of health. Say you're building quenching scales with 3 lesser healths, all of a sudden you've got an extra 30 health from that, which in those first 7 points, you're hitting level 3, level 4, maybe level 5. That's still pretty relevant at that point. That's half of an auto attack from an EDC, or, almost a whole auto attack from an offlaner or whatever. So these changes, they add up over the course of a build pretty significantly. So armor and ability armor, basic and ability armor have been increased. I like this. I like these changes. I think that I will be curious. The biggest thing I'll be curious to see is if they end up going up anymore. Because, I think that this is trying, especially with the armors, it incentivizes building a little more, or having the option of building a little more penetration to fight those tanks. But it just makes being a tank that much easier. It makes the ability to frontline a little easier. You can't get melted in, you might take 6 health hits from Twin Blast or Revenant or whatever instead of 3 at max build. And that's pretty significant. That's, a whole second, maybe even 2 seconds that you were able to stay there, be in that fight without dying. Yeah, like I said, I think this adds up quite quickly, and I really like those changes. So yeah, I'm gonna hit on some of the big points here. So Nanoplasm now gives Spell Vamp. So this is huge for Iggy and Scorch, Morgesh. Both of those, especially since it gives power and mana, this is huge. And the fact that it's universal affinity, again, makes a huge difference. But there are a lot of people who can benefit from this. But I think those two are actually the two that benefit the most, especially against Scorch. The fact that you can throw down those turrets, be dealing that damage over time, it's big. Yeah, I think it is a little... I don't think it's as good on someone like Gideon or Countess, well, especially Countess, since she has the built-in healing, but where, your damage is bursting out. Certainly not good on someone like Aurora or Greystone, because he has no skills. But I think there are heroes that can take advantage of this, and I like that it is an option now. Spell Vamp is interesting to me, especially, like I said, on someone where you have a lot of AoE damage that happens over a period of time without you having to actively do anything. So those turrets, Hive, those are the first 2 that come to mind. I'd have to look at the hero list to remind myself of other ones who could take advantage of that. Gadget could potentially take advantage of this, but like I said, I think there are a lot of off-lane people who are reliant on those skills to deal their damage, that build a lot of power, that build some ability pen, things like that, where this will really benefit them. Like I said, Iggy and Scorch all the way. So Tainted Magic changing, universal now, now costs 7 points. Like, I thought Tainted Magic was cool before. This is 1,000 times better. So, Spell Burn. Dealing ability damage to enemy heroes applies damage over time effect that deals ability damage equal to 8% of the target's current health over 3 seconds. This effect cannot stack. So consecutive ability damage instances refresh the duration. So this is quite strong again on Iggy and Morigesh. Morigesh, not someone we needed to buff, but there you go. I think especially on Morigesh, this could actually be a little crazy. It's still a steep cost though. And I will definitely be interested to see if, since it's 8% of the target's current health, not their max health or something like that, which is how I think poison worked previously. I definitely will be interested to see if this actually ends up doing any more damage than just building power. Because, you get 2 points of power, 1 point of mana regen, so you're paying 4 for this passive, 8% of their current health. So yeah, I don't know if the extra 24 power that you could get, or even 30 power if you include that mana regen as a lost point. I'd be interested to see the math behind this. Hopefully Sylphin will do a video on it. If not, I might have to get down in there and try and do some math myself. But, I think it's a cool concept. I think it's better than what it was previously. And I like that, it gives you, if you only have enough for one ability, or like I said, if you're Iggy and Scorch and you just want to sit there in a fight for the whole thing, and you can build tanky, like those turrets, you can be dancing around the edge of the fight, but those turrets can be sitting in the middle of it. And, if over that 10-second duration, it's dealing 8% of the 8% of their current health the whole time, or over 3 seconds. Oh dear. So how does that work out? So it's dealing 2.5%. No, that's not quite right. 2.33% damage. 246. No, that's 7. God, someone give me the math on this. Anyway, so you're dealing, let's just say 2.5% of their current health every second, in addition to the turret damage. Like I said, I wonder how that, at what point does it stop being worth it, or is it ever worth it, as compared to the extra 30 power that you could get from just building a pure power card. So, oh man, and it's actually even 36 power, because at the 1 point you don't get anything for maxing it out. So yeah, that's a lot of damage that you're missing out on. So wards, like I talked about earlier with the drone and the turrets, they now have health. Take reduced ability damage. It's fine. I really like. Does mean Grox can't one-shot them. Means you have to commit a little bit more to destroying a ward. Totally fine. Circlets, major bonus. Love it. Means I actually have to put upgrades in those now, but whatever. Let's see. Empyrean Mask is now a viable card. Font of Rapture. It now gives you more relevant stats, because the health regen and mana regen were not relevant. I'm sorry, but it wasn't. 1 point of mana regen and 2 points in health regen. I'm glad that's gone, especially since You want to be playing this on a carry or someone like Greystone or something like that. And the fact that now it gives you lifesteal and power, this opens it up to several other characters who if you aren't interested in that crit chance, you couldn't use this. However, with the lifesteal and power, this is actually pretty strong, and the changes to shields make it even stronger. So Font of the Rapture I definitely expect to see as a staple in Sparrow decks moving forward. I think it's really strong with her attack speed, and the fact that now she can get power from it, she can get a little bit of lifesteal from it. You could run that plus, say, Swift Indignation or Silent Indignation or Sword of the Altar or whatever, and you can get enough lifesteal on her easily. You can still have that 9 points, and you don't lose a lot of power for this. And that shield now, again, it's even better. And I think that with this, Sparrow could be contending. Like, I think that, after these changes, that Murdoch, Twin Blast, Sparrow, and Revenant are going to be the 4 best ADCs. Like, I still think that Grim is not that great. Sarath is fantastic, but I actually don't like her in the safe lane. Yin, still solid counter pick, but I think, again, Font of Rapture puts Sparrow, like, she's getting up there. And Twin Blast, I don't know, this might put her ahead of Twin Blast if she wasn't already. I know that they usually are competing for that top slot. And now I'll be curious to see how Murdoch plays into that. So some other quality of life changes. Mad Spore Sash actually deals more damage. I love this card. I've been wanting to play with this card forever, but it was crap. And so, yeah, I still don't know if this is enough. So, all right, let me calculate this real quick. So, because you'd think I'd be able to do this in my head. But, okay. So now this is dealing 34.5 damage per second to everyone within a 500 unit radius every second. So, yeah. I mean, that's significantly more than before. I mean, that's, 8 points more than before, 9 points more than before. And that's relevant. I still don't know if it's enough to make it worth playing. I honestly doubt it. Especially since you're still paying a pretty steep cost for that passive. But we'll see. Let's see. Purity Sensor was the other big change. Cooldown increased. 80 mana doesn't bother me. Like, whatever. Cooldown increased for 120 from 90 seconds. So, the biggest thing that this does means is that cooldown on Purity Sensor is longer than the cooldown for Aurora's ult or the Phase ult, whereas previously it was shorter, even at max level for the Aurora at least. Faye, I can't remember her ult length, but this is somewhat significant. I mean, usually your team fights aren't lasting long enough to use Purity Sensor twice in them anyway. But it does mean that if Aurora can manage to re-engage before that 120 second mark, you've got that 20 second window, essentially, from the time when she uses it and when Purity Sensor is used to try and... You've got 119 seconds, and 20 seconds of that your ult will be up, or 19 seconds of that your ult will be up. So if you can land it, well, and really you need 2 seconds for her ult to finish. So you need, you have 18 seconds at the end of that to try and re-engage before Purity Sensor comes back online. I don't see this making that much of a difference, but there are times where I think it could make a difference. Like I said, I don't think this doesn't bother me. I think they're trying to make some of those characters, especially as they move forward with the larger hero pool, you don't want people feeling like the character they've chosen to play and love gets shut down completely by one card. That's pretty much every support is going to be playing. And so, I mean, I think that this is some peace of mind for some people, even though I don't think it's actually that relevant of a change. Let's see. Satori Cloak doesn't make much of a difference. Shockwave now deals damage. So larger radius, 250. I mean, sure. I really, like, a lot of these things, I don't see them seeing that much play anyway. Again, I'll get into more of that into these situations where they are relevant and the heroes on which they're relevant in a big article that will come out soon. Siren Song I don't even actually remember, but as Severin pointed out on Reddit, the only two corruption ADCs are Grim, who has a built-in slow, and Sarath also has a built-in slow. Yeah, I don't really see that being particularly relevant. Stablink, this is cool. The base health cost reduced slightly. I like that. Removed the critically wounded restriction, which is really quite relevant, actually. I mean, most of the time you see this as an engage, but if you can get out of that fight, avoid taking damage for 5 seconds, even if you're critically wounded, now you have a chance to get away. So, it can function more like Teleblink, Blink, things like that in that specific situation. This was the other really big change. Stasis Gem, now Universal Affinity, now only 5 CP. I think this is going to become a core card in a lot of builds. It's going to be a lot easier for some characters who wanted to run it before to run it now without missing out on too much. I preferred Stasis Gem personally on Gadget over Teleblink. And now it's the same cost as Teleblink, and it's universal. So, making that choice means I don't have to lose out on 2 CP somewhere else. And I think that's pretty huge. I think that this is going to be very strong on a lot of different heroes, and I think you'll see it a lot more. So, general changes, loot crate updates, yada, yada, yada. There's some cool stuff going on in there, but not anything that we're particularly interested in right now. So, switching to the alternate PS4 controller configuration for new players. Does this mean that everyone is going to be starting out on that alternate layout? I like that because I personally prefer the alternate layout, but this could throw some people off. I don't quite know what this is supposed to mean, but whatever. So, we've got the monthly Megavault stuff where you can get some loot keys, yeah, I mean, the most of this stuff. Again, we're not particularly relevant to competitive gameplay. The biggest ones, these are the biggest changes. Howitzer. So, the volume of howitzer shots, and more importantly, Yin's whip reduced to be less overpowering. Thank God. This is fantastic. Oh, I'm so happy about this. Okay, so, thinking about it, let's talk about the loot crate stuff real quick. So, monthly vault reward. This is the other way that we're going to be spending stars, which is great because, man, I hit that diamond chest so fast, and then I have nothing to spend those stars on. And I have, a whole day or two where I'm just earning stars and nothing happens. So, earning that chance to get something from the vault, I think that's great. I like the idea of golden keys. So guarantees a rare item or above in loot crates. That's great. I think this will help solve some of the complaints about loot crates and things like that, and not being able to get anything. I mean, I don't find them that particularly relevant because I don't have a problem with the way loot crates work. I do think that they would benefit from some of these things being outside of loot crates. I think that more people would spend money on these things. And from a business perspective, I would be really curious to see the analysis behind leaving, for instance, variants and things like that in the crates versus putting a price tag on them and having them all available. I don't know if the feeling of elation when you finally get something that you've always wanted, things like that. I don't know. Yeah, but that aside, because we're not really here to talk about business choices, I don't have a problem with the way they work because everything is aesthetic. And so whatever I get out of a loot crate, cool. If I didn't, if it wasn't, there's not any one thing in there that I feel like I really need, because you don't need any of it. It's just fun stuff that's really cool, and I love that it's a part of the game, but it just doesn't matter. In the same way, and I'm glad that it's not this way, because if you had to pay to play, for instance, that's really what I'm getting at. So that's really it for today. So this is big, and I'm excited about FaZe. The short version of this is big changes are coming. Card rework, there's going to be more info that I'll be putting out in an article sometime over the next week. The hero changes, Murdoch got the biggest change. And it's big. He will actually be competing in that top tier of ADCs again, which is cool. I'm glad to see that, because I like Murdoch. I like his flavor. I like him as a hero. And I'm excited to see what happens there. So thank you guys for tuning into this. If you turned on Twitch, thank you for watching there. We will be streaming more on Twitch. The team is coming together. We've got all 5 of our core members. We've got one of our alts. We've got someone who may or may not be an alt. We're still figuring that out. But core team is done, at least for now. And, we're starting our training next week, coming with version 40. All of those will be streamed. And we'll be putting that schedule out every week. It'll be fairly consistent, but there will be some days where we'll have sessions at different times, things like that. So just keep an eye on our Twitch page, keep an eye on Twitter. You can follow us at Alien2 Gaming, and we'll also be posting all the stuff to YouTube after the fact. So keep an eye on us there. If you're catching this on YouTube, again, thank you for tuning in. Like it if you like it, dislike if you dislike it. Subscribe if you are excited to see more. Any feedback, positive, constructive feedback, negative, constructive feedback, just feedback. Let us know. Let us know what you'd like to see. We've got a lot of ideas for what's coming, especially as the website launches and things like that. But we want to get your voice in here. We want to see what's not out there that we can help provide. Because we've got a lot of great minds on the team. We've got a lot of people who really, we're still learning the ins and outs of this game and learning how to implement some of those things at all of the same time. And, maybe I'll do a video series on the coaching side of things at some point, if anyone is interested in that. But, for now, again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching, and tuna out.